So hey Jeff, it's so good to meet you.
Good to meet you as well.
And when I first heard your story, this is Jeff Younger. If people know of the website Saving James, when I first saw
SaveJames.com.
Okay, SaveJames.com. SaveJames.com. When I first saw the website, I thought I couldn't believe it. I wanted to make sure it was a hoax, that it was not a hoax. So I tried to call the church, I tried to call people, I couldn't get a hold of anybody. But this is Jeff Younger, and your son is the son that is focused on SaveJames.com.
That's right.
Now you have 2 children, right?
That's correct. James and Jude, I named them after the brothers of Jesus.
That's what I had heard as well. So tell me about the whole thing, about the Save James and the reason that you're being so public about this.
Well, so was divorced a few years ago. When my child hit his 3rd birthday, and this happened during the divorce, hit his 3rd birthday, he started telling me that he was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately pulled out my video and videotaped him and asked him, why do you think you're a girl?
Mm-hmm.
You can see this video at SaveJames.com. It's the first time I heard about this.
Okay.
You can experience it with me.
Okay.
James said, Mommy says I'm a girl.
Mommy says I'm a girl?
Mommy says I'm a girl.
Okay.
And then he started telling me all the other things that Mommy does. Mommy puts nail polish on me, puts me in dresses, and tells me I'm a girl. And she started reading to him books about Jazz Jennings, the boy that has now surgically transitioned.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And she started reading him his books and setting Jazz Jennings up as a hero for James.
Mm-hmm.
Before I had even moved out of the house, and one of the reasons that I had stayed home with my children, I was a stay-at-home father,
mm-hmm.
was because she had been putting him into timeouts. This is back when he was like 1.
Mm-hmm.
Saying the monsters only eat boys.
Okay, so the brainwashing.
There was a lot of strange things like that is why I started staying home.
Yeah.
There were some other things with her daughters, but I started staying home with my boys.
So you said she had other children from another marriage or something, or?
Well, so this is interesting. So when I was dating Anne, I was
mm-hmm.
told that she had 2 adopted daughters.
Okay.
Zoe and Sydney.
Okay.
Well, when I got into the marriage, I discovered the truth of this, which was that actually Sydney is adopted from her brother, who is a 3-time convicted felon,
okay.
and if he gets convicted again in California, he'll get life in prison for 3 convictions, felony convictions.
Okay.
She was exposed to methamphetamine in the womb and was abused in her first 18 months of life. I didn't know that coming into the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And Zoe was from a sperm donor.
Okay.
Anne told me that she hadn't had a date in 10 years and she just got tired of waiting, and so she went and chose a sperm donor.
But this is the adopted child, supposedly.
Yeah, the one that I thought was adopted. So there's a lot of things I didn't know going into the marriage.
Yeah,
right?
I gotcha.
Okay, so yeah, she has 2 daughters. And then, when she filed for divorce, I moved close by, within 2 miles of where
mm-hmm.
she lived.
Mm-hmm.
And so the boys would come over to where I lived, and we had 50-50 schedule for mm-hmm. almost 2 years before we went to trial.
Okay.
And the judge annulled my marriage of 5 years with 2 children and made my children illegitimate, born out of wedlock.
On what basis did the judge annul your marriage?
She annulled the marriage on the basis that I had committed marital fraud. She said that I had, while we were dating, I had exaggerated how much money I made, that the way the judge put it, Mr. Younger put his best foot forward, that I had exaggerated my commercial accomplishments, that I had exaggerated my military accomplishments, and that all these boastful behaviors amounted to marital fraud. The real reason the judge wanted to annul my marriage mm-hmm. was to annul the prenuptial agreement.
Okay, this is getting very interesting. This is something you're not going to find on SaveJames.com, right?
Oh no, I put all of the paperwork.
Do you have everything out there? Okay, good.
Everything is out there.
Okay.
So you can see everything, right? So the judge annulled the marriage. That means there's no premarital agreement now.
Okay.
And that allowed the judge to give me a $50,000 judgment to pay Ann Georgilis for my own truck that was titled in my own name. And so I got a $50,000 judgment coming out of the marriage.
Do you mind naming the judge?
It's Judge Kim Cooks in the 255th Court. She's an elected judge.
Okay, and which 255th? That's
255th District Court.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so continue on then.
So
you've got two. Now she's got supposedly two adopted children, even though one was from a sperm donor, and now she's got two other children that the judge has now made illegitimate because...
That's correct.
Okay.
And of course, the judge didn't seem to care that I was lied to about the status of the two girls.
I was going to say, the annulment based on lying, it would seem like that would go both ways. But the other thing is, don't most people to some degree put, even if, when you date somebody, don't you want to put your best foot forward a little bit?
One thinks. I mean, if there's an essence to men when they're dating, it's to always put their best foot forward.
Right.
You dress your best, you speak your best, and you put all of your past foibles in their best light. I mean, that's what dating might be defined as, actually.
Yeah.
So, I asked for findings of fact and conclusions of law after the divorce.
Oh, I bet you that was
in preparation for an appeal.
No findings of facts, right?
Judge Kim Cooks refused to give it to me.
Yeah.
So I had to go to the appeals court, and I got a writ of mandamus against her, which like 99% of those are denied in Texas. Is very rare. And the appellate court, the Fifth Appeals Court, District Appeals Court, ordered her to produce findings of fact and conclusions of law. So she simply signed her name to the findings of fact and conclusions of law written by Ann Georgelis. So it has over 120 findings of fact about me. One of my favorites, I think it's number 60-something, says that Jeff Yunker will say and do anything to get his way. That was actually a finding of fact by the court. So the court somehow knows what I'll do in the future. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I have all of this out there for you to see. I want you to know what the judge put out as findings of fact, and I want you to see it. She found that I committed marital fraud. Okay. Because I was too boastful about my income and other things.
Were you too boastful about your income?
No. Actually, in point of fact, I was not boastful about my income. And in fact, during the marriage, for most of the whole time of the marriage, I made over 6 figures. So I actually was not boastful about it. I told her that I had worked overseas, and that's all true. And I had a small business overseas. That's all true. But what I think none of this was true. I think what happened was Ann Georgelis needed a way to invalidate that prenuptial agreement.
Now, Ann Georgelis. So I'm going to say that if somebody were to listen to this from off the street, they would think that she's probably maybe has I'm sorry to say this, but maybe there's something a little bit like a screw loose or something like that. Well, some of the things that you've told me, but she is a very respected person, is she not? Or should we go there?
She's a pediatrician in Coppell, Texas, and she's had a private practice in Coppell since 1994, I believe.
Okay.
But one of the things that we can get into a little bit later is she's been very skillful at using licensed care providers to get the kind of diagnosis that she wants.
Oh, wow. Imagine that.
So one of the things that I find very troubling is that, one of the things we'll get to is how my son starts to cross-dress. So the way that happened was, and then I'll come back to this.
Sure.
The way that happened was on my son's 5th birthday. I became increasingly more strident against this transgender stuff that she was doing with James, but it hadn't reached the point of anything public. On his 5th birthday party, she chose that to be his coming out party, and he went in a dress. Now I'm going to tell you one of the distressing things in my life. This is a personally distressing thing. There were people from my church present at that birthday party who saw my son was in great distress appearing in a dress.
And they said nothing?
They have said nothing. They are refusing to say anything. And it's just cowardly Orthodox Christians. They're just acting cowardly.
So, and I will say, you mentioned Orthodox, but it's not just among the Orthodox. There are people, I like the verse on the back of your shirt, by the way, Proverbs 31:8, to speak out on behalf of those who can't speak for themselves. And I think we have such an obligation to do that, but we fail so many times. And as you mentioned in the church, I've seen the church in many instances, people that you know, they're your friends until something like this happens, and all of a sudden, well, they don't want to pick sides. Well, they don't want to be judgmental. They'll be judgmental against you.
Of course.
They don't want to be judgmental in any way. You know, like, do you have a moral backbone?
And the answer is they don't. And our churches have basically become secularized.
Yeah.
And the fact is they don't have a moral backbone.
Yeah.
And I'm very resentful of the fact that these people are frankly still in the church and are not excommunicated. But
Yeah.
that's another question for another time.
No, I've got it, because
Yeah.
I've seen the churches that have just been a swing and a miss. I mean, it's horrendous.
It's horrendous.
Because of the negligence.
And you know how it is. Any institution that doesn't adopt explicitly Christian moral values and keeps to that will eventually become secularized.
Right.
You have to police that. It has to be, you know, Corinthians is very clear. These people are to be cast out of the church, given over to Satan for the mortification of their flesh and the salvation of their soul, because maybe they'll come back.
Right.
But in any case, that's another question.
Completely.
That's me being kind of at war with my own clergy.
Yeah, I know.
But, so that's very distressing for me. So that happened, and then she enrolled in the next school year as a girl into Coppell Public Schools.
Wait a minute. Now, you said she enrolled him.
Correct.
Okay, as a girl.
As a girl.
And the school district said what?
The school district's position is that the possessory parent gets to decide what happens to the child in the school.
So tell me the difference between the possessory parent and a joint managing conservator.
All right. So in Texas, parental rights are called conservator rights. All right. In Texas law enumerates 11, but they're not complete. There are more rights, but in 11. So in Texas, strictly speaking, all children's rights are actually responsibilities of parents to reasonably exercise their parental rights. In Texas, there are no parental rights without children's rights, and no children's rights without parental rights. They're the same thing, right? So whenever we discuss these questions, parental rights are child's rights. Possession is how long you have the kid, what the schedule is, what holidays you get, right? And under Texas law, possession and parental rights are totally separate. It's possible for someone to be a possessory parent, meaning they have the majority of the time of the child, and have very little to no parental rights. That's very rare, but it's possible, and in some rare cases it is done.
Okay.
So you may have a parent who's very close with a child, for example, but is incompetent to make educational decisions.
Right,
and they delegate that to the non-possessory parent.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it could be quite the other way around.
Yeah.
So they're not related in Texas. And in fact, for example, with regard to child support or other things, the mere fact that somebody has not paid child support or in any other way broken a court order does not affect their possession in any way. Right? The court has to explicitly change that. And the fact that someone exercises possession or does not exercise possession doesn't affect their parental rights.
Yeah.
Right? They're totally separate in Texas law, and the court can make individual judgments in particular cases to do it. So the school board in Coppell decided that they were going to go with the possessory parent rather than me and Ann together, because we're joint managing conservators, meaning we share all rights. Now there's one prominent exception here. For some unexplained reason, the judge decided that I should have all joint managing conservatorship except for one right.
Choosing his gender?
I cannot consent to psychological or psychiatric treatment for James.
Well, so he's just neutered you.
That has prevented me from getting a second opinion. I've never been able to take James to get a second opinion.
Now, did he do that from the very beginning, or was that something that came about afterwards?
No, that was an original divorce decree, and you can go read that.
So that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever, that the judge would do that.
That one little exception. It sounds almost coordinated.
That was the next question I was going to ask you, was whether
Yeah.
the judge and Anne had any type of a friendship or...
That I don't know about. I do believe that
The attorneys...
There's some strange things that happened between Anne's attorney and the judge.